Look, something massive just shifted in the AI coding space. And I'll be completely honest with you. Most people are going to miss it because they're totally focused on the wrong headlines. Right now, everyone is obsessing over parameter counts, processing speeds, and context window sizes. And sure, GPT-5.5 just landed inside the TRAE IDE. And yeah, that is a really big deal. But that's not the real story here. The real story in this explainer is what GPT-5.5 actually does differently from a purely behavioral standpoint. You see, it doesn't just sit there and respond to you anymore. It plans. It uses tools entirely on its own. It actually checks its own work before handing it back to you. We are literally witnessing the rise of agentic coding, and we're going to break down exactly what changed, how you can use it to drastically alter your daily routine, and of course, where it still falls short. To really grasp what's happening, we gotta look at the dividing line between a standard chatbot and an agent, a line that TRAE just aggressively crossed. Think about your traditional AI chatbot. It's completely reactive, right? You prompt it, it responds, and then it just waits. It relies entirely on you to drive the momentum. An autonomous AI agent, on the other hand, takes a goal, formulates a plan, executes that plan, and verifies its own work. I mean, think about the frustration of the reactive model. You're constantly steering the ship, course-correcting every minor deviation. The agentic approach isn't just a subtle upgrade to save you a few keystrokes, it's a completely different way of interacting with an AI tool. We're moving from a subservient tool to a proactive participant.
Section 1. The Agentic Paradigm Shift. So what exactly is agentic coding anyway? Well, it's an AI workflow where the model acts autonomously to understand complex goals, use tools, verify its outputs, and execute multi-step tasks without you having to constantly prompt it. And understanding complex goals is really the heavy lifter here. This doesn't just mean reading the single file you currently have open in your editor. It means the model reads your whole project architecture, grasps the tangled web of dependencies, and actually figures out how modifying a back-end route is going to impact a front-end component. GPT-5.5 inside TRAE isn't just about writing a quick standalone function. It's designed to absorb that broader context and take sweeping action on its own to achieve a much larger, multi-layered goal.
And that brings us to the core philosophy of this shift, doing way more work with significantly less handholding. Think about how this usually goes for most of us, and let's be honest here. How much time do you lose in a day just pasting terminal errors back into a chat window? You ask an AI to fix a bug, it gives you a guess. You test it in your terminal, it crashes. You paste the error back into the chat, it apologizes, tries again. And you repeat this exhausting ping-pong match until one of you finally gives up. That back-and-forth loop has been the default workflow for the last few years, and it is mentally draining. GPT 5.5 is designed specifically to break that exhausting cycle entirely, handling all that trial and error behind the scenes so you only see the successful outcome.
Section 2. Breaking the chatbot loop. Okay, so there are 4 core upgrades to GPT 5.5 that you should actually care about because they directly target the friction of everyday development. First up, agentic coding. This model was specifically tuned for operating across large, multi-file repositories, not just answering isolated logic puzzles. Second, autonomous tool use. The model can natively reach out, gather information, run terminal commands, and navigate your file systems. Third, and I gotta say, this is genuinely the biggest game changer, self-checking and output verification. GPT 5.5 reviews its own work by running its internal validation scripts before it ever renders the output to you. That means fewer broken builds, far fewer hallucinated functions, and logic errors caught before you even have to look at them. And fourth, high efficiency. It completes tasks using way fewer tokens while holding on to the blazing speed of its predecessor. Basically, less time staring at loading spinners, which keeps you directly in your flow seat.
Now, the benchmark data absolutely proves GPT 5.5's strength in this new arena. Look at Terminal Bench 2.0, which tests how well a model handles real command line tasks. It scores an impressive 82.7%. But pay close attention to OS World Verified, where it hits 78.7%. OS World essentially tests if an AI can operate a computer interface the way a human would, navigating menus, clicking around, evaluating visual feedback. Hitting nearly 80% on OS World is a massive leap for AI, proving that this isn't just a model that's good at spitting out text strings. These are strong numbers proving its capability across real-world coding, autonomous tool use, and complex web-based tasks that usually require a human pilot. And this is exactly why TRAE integrating this model matters so much right now. The AI IDE space, it's gotten incredibly crowded incredibly fast. You've got Cursor, Windsurf, GitHub Copilot, Claude Code. They're all racing to be the primary interface where developers spend their lives. By plugging GPT 5.5 directly into their system, TRAE is sending a very clear signal. They want to compete on raw coding intelligence, not just a polished user interface. A beautiful UI with slick keyboard shortcuts is great, but if the underlying model still requires constant babysitting, well, it's just a prettier ping-pong match. TRAE is betting that superior underlying autonomy is what will actually win the day.
Section 3. Real-world practical workflows. Let's look at how this actually changes your day-to-day with a workflow for building something entirely from scratch. You start by selecting GPT 5.5 in TRAE, but instead of describing tiny individual components, you provide the full objective right out of the gate. For example, you say, build a landing page for a productivity app with a hero section, pricing tiers, and a functional sign-up form. From there, the AI takes over. It autonomously breaks the goal into a layout structure, generates the components, and applies styling. Then, it autonomously spins up the dev server on its own, evaluates what rendered, and catches obvious issues, like maybe a broken CSS grid, before it ever prompts you. Because of all this, your job as the developer drastically shrinks down to just review and refinement. You're no longer coding line by line. You're providing high-level feedback on a prototype that already mostly works. Now, let's picture a slightly more frustrating scenario. You need to fix a stubborn bug in a legacy codebase. With this new workflow, you simply open your project and provide the actual symptom. You don't need to point it at a specific file or even guess where the bug lives. You just say, hey, this React app crashes when a user submits the form with special characters. Find out why and fix it. This is where the agentic behavior really shines. GPT 5.5 traces the issue autonomously across your files, checking the UI component, diving into the state handler, verifying the API payload, all without waiting for your permission to open the next file. It then verifies the fix actually resolves that specific symptom in the environment. Finally, you just receive a clean summary of what was broken and what changed. It's brilliant. So what this all boils down to is a fundamental shift. We're moving away from giving instructions for every single step to simply providing the destination and letting the model find the route. The true capability upgrade we're looking at in this explainer isn't just the model's new name or some bump in parameter count. It's this entirely new destination-based workflow that it enables. It treats you like a manager assigning a ticket, rather than a senior dev micromanaging a junior.
Section 4. The limits of autonomy.
Now, reality check time. Every massive leap forward still has its rough edges, and we have to look objectively at the current limitations you need to watch out for. First up is a phenomenon I call autonomy snowballing. Autonomy cuts both ways, you know. The more a model plans and executes on its own, the more a single wrong assumption early on can snowball. Imagine if the AI makes a bad assumption about your database schema in step 1, it might write 20 different files based on that bad assumption before you even realize it's gone off track. Second, context still has limits. Yes, multi-file reasoning is dramatically better, but extremely large, sprawling enterprise repositories can still overwhelm the system. Bigger context doesn't mean unlimited context. Third, there's a distinct lack of transparency. As these models do more without asking for your permission at every single step, it gets progressively harder to fully audit exactly why a specific architectural decision was made deep in your codebase. Which leads us directly to a golden rule you just have to adopt. More autonomy requires more oversight. Even though GPT 5.5 has incredible self-checking features and internal validation, human review remains absolutely vital. You still need to rigorously review what got built, especially if it's going into a real live production codebase where security and performance actually matter. You just cannot fall asleep at the wheel and trust the AI blindly.
Section 5. The AI teammate era.
We're literally living through a fundamental shift in team dynamics here. In the past, you had an assistant you prompted. You ask a question, you get an answer. It was a purely transactional relationship. But the future, which is very quickly becoming our present reality, is all about having a teammate you delegate to. You assign a broad objective, and they go figure out the complex execution on their own. Now, TRAE and GPT 5.5 aren't just operating in a vacuum. They're actually the latest, clearest example of this massive industry-wide direction. We are watching AI coding tools move way beyond being simple interactive utilities and becoming truly collaborative, autonomous teammates. Agentic coding is rapidly becoming the new standard for daily developer tools. And what this means for the future of the developer job market is honestly profound. The role of a software engineer is shifting rapidly from being a typist who translates logic into syntax to being an architect who orchestrates autonomous agents to build robust systems. Ultimately, GPT 5.5 inside TRAE isn't just a smarter chatbot bolted onto an IDE, it's a relentless engine that plans, executes, and keeps going until the job is done. Before we wrap up, if you found this explainer helpful, like, share, and subscribe, please, and drop a comment in comment box. I would love to hear your thoughts on this shift, because as these tools take on more and more of the work autonomously, how much visibility do you actually want into their process? Where do you draw the line between helpful autonomy and completely losing control of your own codebase?